Hello everybody. Today we are going to discuss lean management beyond the production area. Till now, a lot of effort has been made to increase the productivity for the direct labor cost. But if you look at this article from Harvard Business Review, you can see here in this graph that the production cost or for manufacturing any product, direct labor cost contributes only or mostly around 10%, but the overhead costs are approximately 30%. The overhead costs are like sales, R&D, customer care department and finance department, that is 40%, and then are the other costs like 9% are the depreciation cost, then we have material cost 36%, and the remaining 15% costs are indirect labor costs like the maintenance department or process engineering, which are not directly working in the production but they are supporting, so they are the indirect labor costs. But if we see at the spendings or the productivity improvement effort or the focus being done, then in the next graph we see here very clearly that the most of the focus for the productivity improvement was so far in direct labor costs, and the contribution or the spendings are 39% or 40%. So if you compare as compared to the contribution 10% to the spendings 40%, we see here the very big gap here. And the overhead costs in manufacturing of any product are 30%, but the spending or the focus is very less, like 5%. So this is really a big mismatch, because so far in the past we were focusing with our lean management principles to reduce the waste in direct labor cost areas, in the production areas. But in the lean management literature, one of the book I'm going to refer in next few seconds as well, the literature suggests that 90% of the improvement potentials lies outside the production area, but we normally doesn't come out of the production area. We squeeze every euro from every dollar from the production, but we really don't pay attention where the more potential for improvement, for cost reduction lies, and that's the overhead costs, these office areas, which are a little bit hard to analyze. But if we focus to reduce the waste in these areas, that can bring enormous productivity advantage. So if you are a lean expert, manager, or CEO and want to bring the company really a very big productivity boost, welcome to the new era of productivity. In this series of videos, we are going to discuss a lot of phases and a lot of elements, how we can go in a very structured way to analyze, to improve the office areas and increase the productivity, reduce the waste in these areas. So this is going to be very interesting journey. Let's go ahead with this. So going further with the lean management, with waste reduction in the office area, one of the very good book I have is by Drew Locher. This book, Lean Office and Service Simplified, is one of the very good, simple and easy to read book. I would really recommend this book if you really want to go more into detail of this topic. So let's go ahead with the 3 phases, how we can implement, how we can reduce waste, implement the lean management in service areas. We are going to implement lean management and reduce the waste, increase productivity in office area or service area in 3 phases. The phase 1 is flow, means creating the flow. The phase 2nd is creating the pull, and phase 3 is implementing visualization. Starting with the phase 1, creating flow. In service or in the office area, we have a lot of deviation in work content. We have sometimes a lot of work, a lot of demand from the customers, and then from the customer or in the market we have very less demand, and so on. So we always have a big deviations in the demand. Sometimes a lot of work, sometimes very less work. So when we have a lot of demand in the office areas, what happens that we are unable to deliver the content to the next department in right time, or to the customer department or the customers, because we don't have that many resources, because suddenly the demand was so high, and because that was because of a particular season or any incidents, the demand is very high. But on the other hand, when the demand sinks, what happens then we have same number of people in our offices, and they don't have a lot of things to do, they don't have work, and then they just, whatever they are doing, whatever work they have, they just keep on spending more time on the task they have at their desk to do. So what happens, that sink the productivity reduces in that cases. And the companies who thrive, they have the system in place to keep the productivity at very high level. It does not matter if your demand is increasing or decreasing. So in this phase, what we are going to do, we are going to see a lot of elements with which this sometimes very high peak of work and low, these deviation, this bullwhip effect, we want to flow the work content very smoothly. We want to reduce these deviations, and we want to make this whole process so smoother that the work content, the tasks, the projects, they smoothly move from one employer to another, one department to another department, one branch to the another branch. So we want to create a flow of work that there is no interruption of flow because of such deviations in demand we have. So this will be the target of first phase. In order to implement flow in office areas, we have here 17 elements. Through these 17 elements, we can implement flow. The first element is SIPOC, in which we will have the big picture. The second element is process flow. So we'll define what are the activities we are doing, and we visualize it. And after that, we'll see how many bottleneck processes there we have. And after bottleneck processes, we will check in the process flow diagram and in bottleneck process what are the activities which are VA, value adding, necessary, or NVAs, necessary, non-value adding, and W, the waste activities. After that, once we have categorized all the activities in these categories, then we'll understand here the 8 type of waste in office areas. And then we will see how we can create flow by the method of task combination. The next element will be how we can create flow by role combination. Then how we can automatize. Then we will see here what's the importance of improving layout, how the layout improvement can improve the productivity. Then we will see how we can take the principle from manufacturing this one piece flow in office area, and how we can create better flow with this principle. And then we'll very quickly see the knowledge management. What is knowledge management, and how we can manage the knowledge in office area to improve the productivity or the flow. And then we will see the concept of customer tact time. And after that, we will see, according to that customer tact, resource balancing, how we can balance the available resources and allocate the different tasks as compared to they are doing currently in order to create the flow. Then we will see the concept of WILO. It is going more into detail what the employees are doing, and then seeing where we can improve anything. And based upon so far analysis, then we will see if there is a need to change in the role and responsibility of the people. And then we will see how we can create standard work in order to improve the flow in office area. And after creating standard work, then we have almost finished one whole flow phase of lean management or lean improvement in office area. And we will end this phase with the summary as the benefits. What are the benefits we can have out of all these elements which we have already discuss in order to create the flow in office area. The second phase for implementing office lean is pull, implementation of pull system. And for this phase we have 6 main elements. The first element is understanding the type of pull, what type of pull we have. And then the second element is here to understand lead time, why it is important, and how we can have consistent lead time and the quality in office areas. And after that we'll see the third element, decision rule, how and why we need to design the decision rule. And then we will see how we can make this whole system self-regulating, that we don't need any manager who has to constantly take care and supervise the work being done by the employees in a department or in a bigger area. And then we'll see one element from production area, how we can implement in office area, which is called Hijunka, which makes the reaction time to any deviations in performance in office area very, very quick. And with this we have almost finished our pull phase, and then we'll see in the end what are the benefits it brings us if we implement this pull system in office area. The third phase and the last phase of office lean is visual management or visualization. Here we have 3 main elements. The first element is visual management benefits. We'll see what are the main benefits, what it will bring to have visual management in office or service area. And then we'll see what are the normal challenges we have when we are going to implement that. And the third one is 6 stepping stone. So what are the 6 steps, how we can stepwise implement good level of visual management and visualization in office area. So these were all the 3 main phases which we are going to discuss with these elements. Once again, if we cannot implement all the elements and all the phases, depending upon the type of industry, depending upon the type of work being done in the area, if we could implement even some of the elements or 1 or 2 phases, this will enormously boost the productivity in office area. So let's start with the first phase, which is creating flow to improve the productivity in office area. The first element is SIPOC. In this element, what we are doing, we are defining a big picture for the office. It is so interesting to see in such lean projects that not all the team members have the similar picture what they are doing, because every single employee is responsible for their own tasks and nobody has the big picture. So by SIPOC means big picture in a diagram where we write these are the suppliers and they are supplying these inputs for the process, which is the one main process in the middle which our department or our area is performing. And out of this process, these are the deliverables and these are the outputs what we are expecting or we want to generate or are being generated right now. And these outputs are being generated for these customers. So we don't have the very narrow view of our own activities in a process, but the all team members will see the big picture. Okay, supplier, this is my input, this is the whole process, this is my output, and these are my customers. So this is the very first step to start here with the flow in office area. After defining the SIPOC, the next element is to visualize the process. So what are the tasks being performed in the team or in this office area? To visualize all these tasks, as we have defined our customers and the suppliers in SIPOC, so in that context we should see if the tasks being done are right. And the first step is to visualize all the tasks, and I would strongly recommend to use swim lane diagram, because with swim lane we can easily see this is the task in our area and then it is going to another department, then going to another department, and then coming in back to our department. This shows which other departments or the people are involved in our work area and how are the interactions, what are the inputs and the outputs we need from other departments here also. Another important point is here to use the right tool. It means that we could use Visio software for visualization of all the tasks, but if not all the team members have the access to this software, this doesn't make sense that not all the team members can go in, and they cannot always edit and add their inputs. So it is important. It could be PowerPoint presentation, it could be Excel, it could be anything, but it should be very easy to use, common for everybody. That's important. Many times it is very hard to find an appropriate level of detail in which we want to create the process flow diagram for the task being done in any office. Sometimes the teams come up with the 200 tasks in which any lean expert could easily lose the focus, and we cannot come with the further improvements. Or on the other side, some teams come up with 4 words, these are the tasks what we are doing. So here we need the appropriate level, and the caution should be here not to by mistake land into the tasks which office area would like to do. It's not about the should process, it is about what are the current practices, what are the tasks what we are doing, which task is triggering another task, and where we need a lot of decision making. Everything but in current state, not how we would like to have, because that we want to create in the next phases. In order to find the waste, we have to really document as it process and not how we would like to have it. The next element is bottleneck process. Once we have defined an appropriate level of process flow diagram for any office area, the next job is to see what are the few tasks, 1 or 2 tasks where we have really enormous problem, and then we want to really optimize them. And for these or this 1 or 2 bottleneck areas, we can make another process flow diagram in which we will go into more detail, and we visualize what is being done for the further analysis. The next element we have here is VA, NVA or W. So this stands for value adding process or value adding task, non-value adding but necessary, and the waste. The value adding process or the tasks are the tasks which are contributing to the final product or to the final service for which the customer is willing to pay. And necessary non-value adding activities are the activities which are not adding any value but are necessary because of the present condition, law or the technology we have. We want to deliver, for example, any software, and the skill level of the programmer is not at the peak, so that need to be tested, checked by 2 or 3 senior engineers, for example. And so customer is not paying for the 2, 3 or 5 or 10 time testing. He is paying only for the end result or for the software, but because of our present conditions or the skill level, we have to do it. So these are the necessary but non-value adding. Others could be that because of government regulations, we have to do a lot of documentation or the testing, send the reports. These all could be the activities which are not adding any value but we have to do. And the third category is the waste activities. So we have 8 type of waste which we are going to discuss further also in more detail. These are the waste. They don't add any value to product or to the service. They consume time, they consume resources. Mostly they are very hard to recognize, to see, could be valid in the past but not valid today, and there we have big potential of improvement if we could eliminate these tasks. So with this definition of value adding, necessary, non-value adding, and the waste definition from the customer point of view, we have to mark all the activities, all the process step in our process flow diagram, which activity is value adding, which activity is waste, or which activity is necessary, and we have to mark and see which we can eliminate. If we see there are 1 or 2 activities which are completely waste and which could be eliminated, then we have to write the Kaizen flashes or the improvement potential there, that with this type of continuous improvement process automation or anything else, we can eliminate them. And then if you are sure, you can take these process steps out of your first draft of process flow diagram, because we know that we could eliminate these processes with some process improvements. And then when you take these processes out, then you can focus on the remaining, because it doesn't make sense to optimize or to consider the steps for further analysis when we know we could anyways eliminate them completely. So it would be the waste of focus and waste of resources. So eliminate or put them to the side, and then go further on the activities which you have to keep in the process for the further analysis. The next element we have here is 8 wastes. So we'll see here what are the 8 wastes in office area. Similarly to the production area, we can take the same acronym for all these 8 type of waste, which is downtime. Starting with D stands for the waste of defect, and O stands for overproduction, and W stands for the waste of waiting time, N stands for waste of non-involvement of employees, and T stands for the waste generated by extra transportation, and I stands for waste of excess inventory, and M stands for waste of motion, and E in the end stands for excess processing, the waste by processing more than required. So this is the acronym for 8 type of wastes. Starting with the first waste, defect. In office area, this could be entering wrong data. For example, the customer data is entered wrong address or wrong information, a wrong phone number, and that could create problem when we are doing the billing or creating bills that will not match, and that needs additional effort to correct it. So this could be the example of defect type of waste in office area. And the second waste is overproduction, means creating more data or tasks than it is required. In office area, it could be printing a lot of pages, a lot of reports than required, than the people are interested to read. It could be sending a lot of emails, a detailed information which nobody is really interested in. The third waste is waste of waiting. This could happen that an employee has to wait for previous step to perform something, and the employee is just waiting for the information or any instructions. It's the waste of time and loss of productivity completely. For example, there could be a scenario where a lot of signatures from the supervisors or the top authority is needed, and the management is not available for 1 or 2 weeks, and the employee has to wait because the employee himself cannot take such decisions. And so this is purely the waste of waiting for any information, for any approval. The next waste is non-utilized talent. So it means when the skill, the knowledge and the talent of the employee is not being utilized. Somebody has a very good knowledge of any process, but this knowledge is not being used, or he's not being asked for his contribution. And this means also wrong person at wrong place. Sometimes we have more qualified people at the tasks which could be done by less qualified. This means also sometimes we don't have knowledge management process at place, where the people who have a lot of knowledge, we extract the knowledge, we document the knowledge, and then we let it flow in the process so that the new employees or less skilled employee can benefit from that knowledge and work effectively. This is a really very big and hidden waste. Another sign could be if in a company there is no mentor and mentee program. So it means the knowledge and the experience of somebody who is 30 years ahead in game, who has 30-40 years of lead management experience, for example, this experience is not being transferred to the fresh engineers in lean management field, who can just get a very good head start by just being in contact with somebody who has done this for last 30-40 years. This is a waste in a company where we don't have mentor and mentee programs. The fifth waste is waste of transportation. It means when the data or the paper or the files, they are unnecessarily moving from one place to another place, one department to another department, or one table to another table without adding any value to the original task. This could happen because sometimes we have the processes or system in which we want to over communicate for every small thing, and we need maybe a lot of approvals from one department to another. For example, if we have the document for travel expenses, it will go from one department then to the boss, then to the finance department, and before finance department has to be approved by top management, and this is purely waste of transportation of some data, some physical papers, or any information. The waste number 6 is inventory. It means the excess inventory. Sometimes we have the files, the drawings, the folders which are 10 years old and they are not being used, and they are just filling up the desks of the employees. So that is just excess which we don't need. And in office area, the open tasks are also seen as excess inventory. So it means the open tasks or the projects which are there but they are not being worked upon. So they are not the work in progress, but they are just waiting to be done by somebody. They are waiting to be initiated by somebody because they have seen previously 4-5 steps. Now they are waiting for the next steps. So the question is why they were initiated when we know that they cannot be completed, and there is a big pile of tasks and the projects lying down the line which just increase unnecessarily the lead time of these open tasks. So this is also seen as excess inventory waste in office areas. The next waste is the waste of motion. The difference between motion and transportation or the transport is, in transport the information or the data is being transported or the papers are being transported from one place to another. The waste of motion means the employees themselves, maybe because of the layout, a person has to just go from their desk to go far away for printing, then go somewhere else for approval, then go somewhere else for scanning. In the office, when we have inappropriate layout, then people are wasting time. I can very well remember one lean project in which a consultant, after the analysis, he said that you can improve your productivity by 10% by putting the paper punch always at the right place. And once the consultant said this statement, all employees in the office started laughing, because just putting one paper punch at the right place always, how this can improve the productivity. When he showed the data, it is not only that the people were searching for paper punch. Because of the paper punch, they were going to the multiple employees and they were discussing non-work related topics and spending time which was not adding value. So one thing triggered to the another type of waste. So if we have the proper layout, the waste of movement or the motion of the employee will be less. And in some scenarios we have seen that the meeting areas are so far away from one building to another building. This is the waste of motion of the employee. It's not only the waste of time, it's the distraction, it is the lose of focus of the employee, if this is the meaning of a waste of motion in office areas. The last waste we have here is excess processing in office area. This means putting in more effort in any task than required. The difference between excess processing and inventory is, in inventory we have open tasks, a lot of different tasks, but in excess processing we are talking about one task, but doing this task in more detail and putting too much effort than it is required by the client or by the customer. It could be creating a report in too much in detail, spending too much time on color coding, on diagrams, or having a lot of discussion with a lot of people, which is not required for that task. So it means excess processing than required than it should be. So it takes a lot of time. So it means generally that we are not trained to work as per Pareto or 80-20. Sometimes the tasks are like that, with just 20% effort you can achieve 80% results. And for such tasks also the people are, or the employees are going in too much detail, and that's the waste of resources. Now we have seen the 8 different type of waste in office areas. The next task is that you clearly communicate to the team that these are hidden, because the people are working for last 10-20 years. They are just doing without realizing that what they are doing is not the value adding task. Some of the tasks they are doing, these are purely the waste. If there is a in billing process defect and they have to call to the customer department, they are thinking that it is the work that they are doing in these office areas. But the reality is this is a defect. If 20% of the customer orders have mistake, any error in that, and 20% of the time production planner or anybody else has to call back, so it is a lot of time waste. Maybe by any appropriate action, this 20% of the defects or questioning gain to the customer department can be completely eliminated and could save enormous amount of time. But if we do not train the office employee with these definitions that these are the tasks, they will not have these specs on to see that the tasks what they are doing, they are the waste. Either they are the waste of defect or the waiting time, where they are waiting for the drawings, because they will say, okay, this is the process, I have to wait for 2 weeks for any approval. But after this training that this is a type of waste, we should not have this in our organization, they will come up with the ideas. One idea for the previous example, when from the customer department or the department who is responsible for taking the customer orders, they have a checklist that when a customer is calling for any orders, these are the all information we need, and this is how we have to confirm all the information so that the information is not wrong or any information is not missing. Just with the simple solution, we could completely avoid any need of calling customer again or any problem for the downstream processes. So this is a very good example how we could improve if the office employees are aware what is value adding, what is waste. The job here would be, we have now previously drawn swim lane diagram where we have all the tasks what we are doing, and now we have seen a type of waste also. And then to see in my task number 1, do I have any type of waste occurring right now? Waiting time, errors, excess inventory or anything? Yes or no? With my next step, how long I am waiting for any decision? Is it a waste here? Any of the waste? With that, you can identify in your whole process a different type of waste. Once you have identified, right there the Kaizen flashes, the improvement ideas, that okay, this is the problem here in this process, to that this is the Kaizen flash, the improvement potential, and then keep on collecting for every improvement potential separately all the ideas, and then you have a very good list of improvement ideas. And after putting these ideas in action plan, that means who will do it, how long we have to work upon it, and with that you can start on optimizing your one by one the processes. And this is how you can create the flow, that the tasks, the projects are flowing through these office area very smoothly without waiting for anything, without any defect, just coming and going smoothly. So this is how we can improve the productivity. Similar to the last part where we have seen how to use the 8 type of waste as checklist in our process flow to see do we have any type of waste anywhere in our process flow diagram. In this part we are going to see if we can apply task combination. In task combination, imagine you have 3 employees and they might be in different departments also, and every employee is processing 10 job orders as a batch. So maybe the next department, the next employee is again having 10 or 12 job order books or documents, and the another employee in another department might also have 20 tasks which he or she is doing as one batch. So what happens when one task or one project is going through all these 3 employees who have buffer of task or projects or the orders in front of them, one job order has to wait for all these 35 job orders to go through, and the waiting time between these employees, this from switching from one employer to another employee is really really high, it increases the total lead time. So the task combination that suggests check if in whole process there is any chance in which we can combine the tasks, so that these 1 2 3 4 tasks can be performed by one person only. So that will drastically reduce the total lead time. The negative side or the challenge is that could be complex. The different tasks might need different type of skills. There might be a need of some training. But on the other hand, as we have seen in the last part of a type of waste in office area, that there is one waste, unutilized potential or non-involvement of employee, where we are not using the skills. But if we combine that task, we will use skill set of one employee, because he's not doing now or she's not doing now one repetitive monotonous task, but he or she has now the chance to do the activity number 1 and then 2 and 3. So it means it's increasing the variability, it's asking for more skill set. This is how we can use the element of task combination to check if we can use this anywhere in our process. If we can use it, it will reduce the total lead time and reduce the waiting time in the process for any task. Similar to the task combination, we can also check if the role combination makes sense in the whole process flow diagram. There can be sometime the projects where it makes sense to combine the role. What it means, it doesn't mean like in task combination that one task or the 3 tasks are given to one person, we are combining the task. Role combination means bringing the different roles together and combine them together to work on a particular task or project for a longer period of time, or for only for that particular project. For an example, the role could be taking the customer orders, research and development, R&D. It could be engineering department, it could be production planning, it could be accounting. There could be multiple departments, and they might be located far away. The department could be located in the same building far away, or might be they are located in different cities. But you have to check in your whole process diagram if the efficiency can be drastically improved, if the flow of work going through these different roles can be improved if we bring all these different roles, combine them together at one place. If it's not possible physically, then we can use the virtual meetings, but with very high discipline, that it doesn't matter if we have any topic, one person or not, everybody has to join every morning for 15 minutes. I have seen very big difference in the output when we really moved these special roles together for one project, where for every minute or for every small task one has to ask the other one, because the process were very new, it was totally new product, and in the beginning a lot of communication was required. And because they all were physically in one area, though they have totally different functions, the efficiency, the output, and the error-free workflow through all these different roles was totally different as compared to in the previous layout, where everyone was sitting and one has to wait for the feedback from another role or from the another department. The next element in order to improve the flow and bring the productivity in office area is automate. Just check which changes, which task could be automated in whole process area. Just giving an example, there can be different departments might be using different Excel sheets. For example, the sales department might enter, instead of any standard software, they might enter the data in their own specialized custom Excel sheet. How many job orders they are getting, what is the forecast, and if they can confirm the customer that the order quantity can be delivered or not. And they might also have the cycle time of the different products in their Excel sheet. And then one Excel sheet could be used by the production planning. They might have also the quantity for the coming months. They might also have the setup time and the cycle time. Then the finance department might be using their own Excel sheet, where they need to enter also the cycle time of the products in order to calculate the costs. And there might be other department also who might use their own custom Excel sheet, but might have some of the data which is the basis for all these Excel sheets. For example, setup time, cycle time, or the quantity. All these department needs, but one department goes more into detail of the cost, and another department might go into the detail for the cycle time only. There might be some difference in the level of details which different departments are prioritizing. But what happens once we do any improvement in our production area, then it might happen that the cycle time is now 50% less, but this information is not being transferred or is not flowing to all the Excel sheet at the same time or as quickly as it should be. It might happen that the production software might be connected to the finance software, in which these two departments are getting the information very quickly as soon as the changes is coming in one department, another department is getting. But it might happen that not all the department. So instead of using just 5 different type of Excel sheets, it could be that we could have one location, one centralized big detailed Excel sheet in which if the changes from the production department is coming, this change is now available and this information is automatically available to all different departments. This is a very minimum level of automation. If you have the budget, then you should aim for specialized software which are connected with each other, or the best solution could be, for example, SAP, in which you can use the different modules for production, for sales, or all the different areas, and all the calculation, all the information is flowing inside the software, and it's up to date, it's real-time information. So with this element, we are checking in our whole flow diagram, is there any room to connect the information, so that you don't have to do, or every department doesn't has to do differently and wait for the meetings or any emails to be informed, but this is happening automatically with any low cost solution, whatever is in the budget of the company at that point of time. Next element for checking in our process flow diagram to eliminate waste and improve the productivity is the layout. We have also discussed this in a type of waste part, that we can check if the layout of the office is optimal. There could be that one employee has to go from printer to scanner and to go to the supervisor for taking the signatures, as we discussed previously, and this can not only waste the time, but it can also distract them from their original work. Also very good example, as in the previous part we discussed with the paper punch, when the consultant told if we are not placing the paper punch at the right position, we are not using the 5S in that office, so it is causing 10% productivity loss, which was a surprise for everybody, but that was the true data driven study there. So check if the employee has to go far away for any meetings or anything, or this could be arranged nearby somewhere, and check for any possible improvement in the layout, because even 10 minutes waste of time, if we calculate 10 minutes in whole year, that would be a lot of productivity loss over a period of whole year. So that should be taken care. Check by optimizing the layout, any of the tasks could be positively impacted in the office area. Next element to check in the whole process flow diagram or in the office area is if there are any chance by which we can create one-piece flow. One-piece flow is a term comes from manufacturing. So in office area, we can check if we can eliminate the batches, so that the different employee, they are not allowed to have the batch of 10 or 20 tasks in between, but one piece of information, one piece of task, one project is being flowing through all these employees. And this will avoid the long queues of tasks, the waste of inventory we discussed in the A type of waste part, that would be avoided. And this can be done by specifying minimum and maximum number of tasks in that area, that we will not start 5th project or 4th project until we haven't finished the last 3 projects and they are not out of the department and they have moved to the another departments. By regulating, by fixing the maximum or the minimum number of tasks allowed, we are avoiding the batch, we are increasing the consistency, and we are reducing the total lead time. But this tool we will discuss in more detail in next phase of pull implementation. Next element in order to improve the flow and improve the productivity in office area is knowledge management. This is so important element, still ignored by a lot of companies. This suggests that we have to check in our whole process or in our working area if there are knowledge intensive tasks or process steps. So if we have that, we have to check, do we have knowledge management processes at place? And if we have, are they connected to the process? Are they bringing the value to the current process? So this might happen that some of the knowledge for that process is explicit, which is documented in some kind of SOPs or some books or some drawings, it could be. But there could be the knowledge which is implicit knowledge, tacit knowledge, which could be only in the head of the experts who are working for 10-20 years in that area, and which is very hard to capture in the paper or to convert from implicit knowledge to explicit knowledge. So are we managing that type of special expert knowledge so that if the new employee is coming, then he can perform the task to a certain level of expertise? Or if that expert is always working consistently, or that expert is working with the state of the art knowledge that we have, or he's just thinking he's the expert and that's the only knowledge. So we have to check all these points. This could improve the productivity enormously if in your office area there are some 1 or 2 tasks or steps which are knowledge intensive and there was no system in place for that, and now with this checklist you are going through all the tasks and you are saying this task and this task, this is knowledge intensive, very complicated, always the conditions are changing, we really need expert to do this. And then you can manage what are the knowledge management processes you could use. Knowledge management in companies or in office area, it itself is a very broad area. If you think this is an area where you want to go deeper into detail, write in the comments below. We will cover this topic, but this is so broad area that it will take itself 1 to 2 hours of video series to go through all the knowledge management processes and to see how we can integrate knowledge management in our normal process flow diagram so that it doesn't create a lot of additional work, but also continuously improve our process every time we are performing that process, because in between we have used 1 or 2 or 3 knowledge management processes to improve the overall efficiency of the office. So let me know in the comments below, then we will create another series of videos to just cover this topic more into detail. Just to have brief idea what is knowledge management and how the knowledge management processes look like, what are these processes, just in very brief, knowledge management has 7 core processes. Different authors, different literature can summarize, categorize them very differently. They can combine these 7 processes into 4 processes or 4 stages. Some might take it to 10 different parts, but I will categorize here in 7 parts. There are 2 types of knowledge as we discussed, implicit knowledge and explicit. Implicit is the which experts have in their brain. It's always changing and they have to depending upon the situation, the parameters, the conditions are changing, they have to just use their knowledge in order to perform the task. Explicit knowledge is the standardized work in which we have the written working instructions, we have SOPs, we have books, we have literature, we have article. This is the information, or this is the knowledge we call explicit knowledge. So these are the 2 types of knowledge, and in order to manage these both type of knowledge, we have 7 processes. So in the core of knowledge management is a process. So we might think that we want to do the knowledge management, but we cannot do the knowledge management for all the processes. So the first question for knowledge management comes, what are our business critical processes? So you choose 1, 2, 3 business critical processes where really it was to do the knowledge management, and that process will be in the core. And the first knowledge management process is create knowledge. So in any process where the people are doing different tasks, the knowledge is being continuously created because the people are working on them, they are going through different conditions. So this is the first process in knowledge management. The second process in knowledge management is to identify the knowledge. That means the knowledge is being created at 10 process steps and enormous amount of knowledge. But we have to identify which knowledge is critical and what type of knowledge, implicit, explicit, and which knowledge we need again next time and could be used. So we have to clearly identify which knowledge for which task we want to target, to save it, and we want to do the management of which knowledge. Once we have identified that these are the 3-4 tasks or the knowledge areas or the expertise we want to document, then we have to go for the third process, which is collect the knowledge. We have to see how we can collect it. Are we asking the experts who are performing the task to write small wiki, or we are recording the conferences, or we are recording the technical meetings with them, or we are taking the pictures? There could be a lot of different ways how we are collecting the knowledge. Then we have review the knowledge. We might record a session on a very critical topic which is for 2 hours or 3 hours, but we have to review from these 3 hours what are the 10 more critical points, what was the 10 minutes of recording which is really critical we want to save, and if this is appropriate to save. This might happen that in that session it was really special case, and this case might never come again in the future of the company. So we need to refine the collected knowledge, we have to review the collected knowledge. There might be a big article written of 300 pages, but we might need to manage and review what is the one page, and how we can refine this in a very simple and easy language so that everybody can understand. So this steps aims for reviewing, refining the collected knowledge. The fifth process in knowledge management is to share the knowledge. So we have collected, we have refined the knowledge, but it should be shared. It should be available somewhere which is available for everybody, and it is shared in the right form. And this is the next process after reviewing the knowledge. After we have shared the knowledge, we have to make sure that it is accessible to the right people. So this is the sixth process, access the knowledge. The process experts who are performing the task, they should know that if they need the knowledge, this knowledge is accessible to me, and I can go there on this page in this article, or to that conference or that yearly meeting of experts on this topic, or monthly meeting of the experts. It could be any form how we are managing, and he or she should be able to access the knowledge, and that knowledge should be accessible only to the people who need to access it. There should not be unauthorized access. That has to be managed under this process of access knowledge. And the last is in knowledge management process is use the knowledge. Sometimes people know that this is the way to work, and they think they are right, and they have this resistance to go to the platform and to access the knowledge and to see if there is any best practice and if they can change it. They might think that this is a new situation, they know how to handle it, and they really don't make the effort of just 5 or 10 minutes to see what were the settings last time, or what were the critical points, what were the lessons learned from the last project. If somebody is doing the project from 5 years, he might be reluctant to use the knowledge from just previous project. So we have to make sure under this process that people are really using the knowledge, and if they are using the knowledge, they are performing the process, the business process, which is in the middle of the knowledge management processes. They will perform this process in a better way, and because every time we are performing, we are using the knowledge, we are improving the process. Because we are now improving the process, we are creating new knowledge, best practices, best quality, consistent lead time, and how we did it, that is being documented, refined, collected, shared, and it is accessible to the right people, and they are using again. So this is the cycle which is going on again and again, which is continuously going, but it is continuously improving all the aspects and bringing enormous productivity through knowledge management. Again, in the end, this knowledge management is not possible to perform for every business process or in every department. We really have to see what are the business critical processes, and in these business critical processes, what are the few processes which really need knowledge management, and only for that we can, if we do only for these processes the knowledge management, then this can enormously bring the company further, because a lot of companies are not thinking about knowledge management, and if one expert leaves the company, then it needs again many years to come to the same level, because there was no system at place to use that knowledge to improve the processes, and the knowledge is gone as soon as any expert is gone. So in order to avoid such conditions or such cases, it is really important to see what are the knowledge critical processes or tasks. Do we have knowledge management in place? In knowledge management, one critical point is that the knowledge experts, they might lose confidence and they might be reluctant to share their expert knowledge if they don't have the surety from management that their jobs or their status will be the same after they share their knowledge. The knowledge experts might think if they share their knowledge, if they help the company to convert implicit knowledge into explicit knowledge, or to share their knowledge from implicit to just by talking to somebody else, they might lose the value, they might lose the jobs, and we have seen in the companies happening multiple times. So for the knowledge management, it is the management's responsibility to ensure, to appreciate the knowledge experts, that they are helping the company to bring to the next level. So that's why it is an enormous contribution towards the future of the company, and they will continue, or they will even improve their status and their jobs also by contributing to the company, and they need not to have any type of fear if they support the knowledge management processes. The next element is customer tact. In order to improve the productivity, in order to reduce the cost in office area, we have to do the resource balancing, which is the next part or next to next part here in this video series. In order to perform the resource balancing, we have to see the demand rate of the customer. What is the demand customer is making in a certain period of time. So this customer tact is calculated by dividing the effective working time by the customer demand. In the manufacturing area, for example, we could say that we are calculating for one shift, which has 480 minutes, divided by the number of parts we have to produce in every shift, 420, and by dividing 480 by 240, this gives us 2. So it means the customer demand is we have to produce every part in 2 minutes. So every 2 minutes we have to deliver one part. Our production processes should be so good that they are able to produce at least one part every 2 minutes. Bringing the same concept in our office areas, it means we take one time frame of 1 month. Say in 1 month we have 20 working days. So in 20 working days we have to deliver 2 projects. So it gives us 10 days. So every 10 days, we should be able to finish one project. This is the customer tact. And in the resource balancing, we will see how this target given by the customer of 10 days or 9 days is deciding how we allocate the resources, how we shift the tasks from one employee to the another employee. So this is really the base. This is very important to make effort for calculating the customer tact. And this customer tact might be different in different seasons. We might have from January to maybe till March very high peak demand, and that's why the customer tact is 6 days. Every 6 days we have to deliver, or in December it might be that every 15 days we have to deliver the project. So in case we have that deviations, we have to really consider for calculating the customer tact. So we have in a year 3 different type of customer tact. Customer tact or customer tact can also vary depending upon the complexity. So we might have project A, very simple, project type B, intermediate complexity, project type C could be very complex, and they might need different time. They might require different number of hours to put in. So depending upon that, we can also say the customer tact in whole year. For project A, we have 5 days. For project 2, we have 8 days. For project C, we might need 20 days, for example. So these variations can be documented when calculating the customer tact in office areas. One of the most important element of creating flow in office areas is the resource balancing. So in this element, the first step is to see our process flow diagram which is being performed in that area or in that office, and see for and document for every step how much time every task needs. It's 1 day, 1.5 days, 2 days, and how much time we require. This could be sometimes very difficult because people might be reluctant to give this information, that how much time they have to spend on which task. That's why it's important here that the trust is there between the consultants and the employees, that this information will not be misused, and there should be the assurity from the management side that office lean management is for the benefit of the whole company and will not have any negative consequence for the employees who are participating in that. And also, it's not that difficult nowadays because of the softwares or the data entries to calculate when a task was started and when a task is ending. When one entry was done today, the next step is being started. After 2 days, we know for this task it's taking 2 days, and there could be some variability from day to day, from task to task, but the average could be used to have the rough estimation which task is taking how much. So in this first step, we are, for all the steps being taken in office, we are writing what is the required processing time for these tasks. So in this example, you can see that there are 7 tasks which needs different time from 1.5 days to 2.8 days, and in total the total time is 18 days, and these tasks are being performed by 4 employees. The next step is to calculate the number of resources required, the number of FTE, full-time equivalent, or the staff members required, and this is calculated by this formula that we divide the total processing time that we have seen in the last slide, 18 days. This total processing time in order to perform all the tasks divided by the customer tact, which we have previously calculated, and multiplied by 95%, which is the efficiency, which gives the 5% of room or relaxation for the employees, plus 10% buffer. So 10% buffer is the buffer in capacity. There might be some errors in the calculation when we calculated how much time we required for the task, or there might be some undocumented tasks that people have to do, or there can be slightly deviations in the demand, little bit demand. In order to cover small increase in demand, we always keep a little bit 10 to 15% of buffer, so that our tasks are not stucking somewhere because lack of capacity, so that they are flowing very easily through the system. So this is the formula, and filling the values in this formula from the previous example, we can divide the 18 days required to perform in this area all the tasks divided by 9 days of customer tact time. Every 9 days we have to deliver one task, multiplied by 95% plus 10% buffer. This gives us 2.32 FTE, full-time equivalent or staff members. And when we compare this with the currently employed number of employees in the system, that is 4, we can see that the tasks require, even after 10% of buffer, 2.3 or 2.5 or maximum 3 employees, but we have 4. So in these conditions we know that there is productivity loss. We are here losing the productivity. So this gives us clear picture that we need to go into more detail and see which operator has more room or which operator is working more than required, if there is a balance between them. So this resource balancing we are going to do next step. So for resource balancing, let's visualize the information we have so far in a graph. Here in this graph we can see that we have here 7 tasks which are performed by 4 employees, and we have the customer tact of 9 days. It means all these activities which are being done in one project, that project has to be delivered within 9 days. So in this case we can see that the line balancing factor is here 72%. So this line balancing factor will be 100% if all the employees have same number of or same amount of work content to provide. So there is no employee who is waiting. But in this case we can see that the employee number 3 who is performing activity number 4 is bottleneck process. So the employee 1 and 2 and 4, they have to wait for this employee. Until this employee is not finishing the activity, the task from the previous employees is not coming to him and it is not flowing further. In this case we don't have the problem of delivering the customer in time. The customer tact is at 9 days and all the activities are below this tact time. So it means we will be able to deliver these tasks to the customer within 9 days. But here in this office area, the main problem is the waste. If we see the line balancing factor of 72%, it suggests that some of the employees are waiting because one employee is busy doing his task, and this waiting time for these 3 employees, employee number 1, 2 and 4, this waiting time is the loss of productivity, and it is 28%. 72 is the factor of line balancing, and that means if we don't have 100% line balancing, it means there are now losses in this process. So this sink the productivity in office area. If we shift these tasks and reallocate them in a way that we still remain under the customer tact, so means our speed of delivering these tasks is still quicker than the customer is asking us, in that case we can remove the employee number 2 and 4 because they are not required, because the tasks could be performed by the employee number 1, 3, and still we are below the customer demand. By doing this, these 2 employees could be used in other department or for other tasks, and this will help the company to perform to deliver the project with 50% less resources. So we have certainly increased the productivity where it was waste in the past. Now we are utilizing. But here a small issue we have, we see the employee number 1 is still not able to 100% meet the customer requirement, because customer requirement is every 9 days and it is touching. So we don't have here the buffer of 10 or 15% in case some tasks have some difficulty and they cannot be completed on time, or we couldn't receive the feedback from any other department, or something goes wrong. So we need 5 to 10% of buffer. So in that case, the next element comes into play, which is VILO. The element of VILO stands for week in life of whom? Of maybe any accountant, maybe sales representative. So it doesn't matter whom we are analyzing, but a week in the life of that employee we are going to analyze. So it means the lean commando or lean expert will go and stay with that employee for 1 week and note down all the activities what that employee is performing, and that should be documented in a template in which we are collecting if the activities he or she is performing are value adding activities or are these any of the waste. We have discussed previously 8 type of waste in office, and in the template we'll document in whole week what were the activities he was performing, and by considering the voice of customer or voice of that process that must be analyzed after recording the data of 1 week, what were the activities which were really not required, which are not value adding, which can be eliminated, or which can be done automatically by another software. By doing this analysis, we will be able to very easily eliminate 10 to 30% of the tasks or the time what that person is doing, and this will bring the line balancing the buffer of additional 5 to 10%. So we have seen that by doing the resource balancing we were touching the customer tact line, but by doing this analysis of the activities done by that employee, we can improve that and we can squeeze this the whole time required for these tasks, because in these tasks we have already analyzed over a period of 1 week what are not value adding activities and what can be eliminated. So VILO, in ideal case it should be 1 week, but if the activity is so standard that it's the same activity being repeated every hour, then the analysis of just few hours should be enough to have the same results. We know in 1 hour that employee is performing 20 tasks, and from these 20 tasks 4 tasks are not required, are completely waste, can be eliminated, are not the requirement of customer and are also not the requirement of this process in which the employee is working. Also, the VILO should not be applied only when we are doing the resource balancing. We are now here discussing a lot of elements, how we can improve the office productivity, how we can generate the flow. If in case we are not able to use all these different elements, only this single element could be used, only the VILO study could be used to check what that employee is doing and what can be eliminated. Definitely there should be the trust, there should be the commitment from the management also not to have any negative consequences, but purely from the lean management perspective that we want to just analyze what you are doing and what are the activities which are not adding value for the company, and we want to eliminate these activities from your activities. And this study does not mean that employee has to work quicker and would cause any additional burden. So these all things should be communicated by the experts, by the top management in advance. Otherwise there will not be enough cooperation from the employees to give the right data, to perform the activities in the right way, in the right speed. But this is very, very powerful tool during the resource balancing and also without resource balancing in general as a standalone tool to eliminate waste and improve the productivity. So in this example, we have seen after the resource balancing, the line balancing factor, we improved from 72% to 96% because now the two employees who are working, one employee doesn't has to wait for a very long time. Once the tasks are finished here, tasks are moving further and he can perform, and that the whole project is finished in that case. But there was still slightly waiting time at employee number 2 through the while loop, because we have further compressed the time required by employee number 1. We have further improved here the line balancing factor from 96% to 99%. In the reality, if anywhere we can achieve more than 94-95% of line balancing factor, this is really the ideal case. Most of the cases line balancing lies really below than 75%. On the side note, it's not only that in Vilo we are considering what are the waste, which activities are not required. Here we can also check how we can perform the same tasks in a quicker way, because the whole aim is to compress the site and to do in a efficient manner. So there are a lot of AI tools, and with that tools a lot of tasks can be done in a very quicker and with less errors. So with the team, you should really go through all these available tasks one by one and see, can we use this AI tool? Is it allowed to use in our company? If yes, which task can be performed in a more efficient way? Is this tool can be used? Is this presentation tool? Is this Excel tool? Is this the language model like ChatGPT could be used to write the SOPs or the emails or anything in a quicker way? So there could be a very good brainstorming in a group where all the possible tools are discussed one by one, and this will give a big productivity boost in case even for 2-3 tasks employees identify that these apps could be used and improve our productivity. After Vilo, the next element is responsibilities. In this element, we are defining role and responsibilities. What we have done so far in last all these elements, we have challenged the existing roles and responsibilities and we have changed it. We have seen how we can do the task combination. We have seen with the knowledge management, we can change the task. We have seen in the previous element that we can divide the task very differently. Instead of 4 employees, 2 are doing, or the employee number 1 was earlier doing activity number 1 and 2, now he or she is performing the other task. So we have just changed to make the flow in whole department. So with this, when we have changed the way we were working before, this becomes very important that we clearly define this new way of working and we are documenting them, that this is how the best practices in this area are and this is how it should be done. So clearly define the new roles and responsibilities. After defining clearly roles and responsibilities, next element is standard work. Standard work complements roles and responsibility element, because once we have defined who will do what, it is important to define or to document also how to do that, so that we make sure that the defined roles and responsibilities are being fulfilled with best practices in a best possible way. So this document, standard work, comes into play. What is standard work? Standard work is simply the best practices to perform a process. Therefore, simply a key driver for efficiency. Standard work is not SOP. It's not standard operating procedure, because in SOP, we are taking one task, one activity and defining in much detail how to do all the sub activities. But on the other hand, standard work, it standardizes how we are doing, it documents the best practices. Instead of how to do it, standard work defines what to do, who will do it, in which sequence it has to be done, and in ideal case, why to do that way, the way it is defined. So the simple goal is that in long term, the people do not deviate from the best practices and keep on performing these best practices unless the new standard work come into role and redefines the best practices. What are the benefit of standard work we have so far experienced? Simply imagine in a process we have 10 employees, and for the 6 key processes we have defined and documented standard work. So everywhere for these 6 employees there is simple 1-page document, and there is written what's the standard work at this place. It has been documented. This reduces the learning curve up to 75%, and it's a lot, so that when we want to multi-skill the people, cross-train the people, then the learning curve is so quick that we can train a lot more number of people in different roles and responsibilities. Addition to that, because we have visualized the best practices, people don't do their own style of doing anything they want, but they stick to the best practices. It has been documented that it brings at least 10 to 15% of productivity boost. Addition to that, because we are working in a standard way, the results, the quality for the customer department or the end customer, it's consistent. The quality is consistent and the time spent is also consistent. So it gives a standard lead time, which makes everything predictable to plan ahead that how much time which project will take, because now everywhere in the project or everywhere in that office we have defined criteria, we have defined quality, we have defined way of working, and that's why we have minimum and maximum time which we are consuming in that area for that activities, which makes the results very predictable and consistent, which drives further the productivity in office areas. How to create standard work? The very first step is to identify all the key activities which are being performed in that area, and next step is to prioritize them. We cannot create standard work for each and every activity, so it is required to prioritize and start with the most important, and then depending upon the resources and importance you can stop after covering some of the key activities for creating standard work. And after that, once we have identified the top few activities for standard work, identify the team for every activity who will write the standard work or the best way of performing them. Because if only one person is writing how they are working, they will never be able to write the best practices. Then the standard work will be written just from a very narrow and from only one perspective. So that's why it's important to define a team. In team, then identify what are the different ways of working that one particular activity, and after finding out the different way, next step is to identify and achieve consensus on best practice. This is key, because everybody might think the way they are thinking, they are doing is the best way, but we have to achieve the consensus and proof that this is the best practice at the moment to perform that activity. Once we have defined this is the way to work, the next step is to document best practice on one page in a visual way, which is very easy to understand. We'll see the example in a few minutes. And once that document is ready, next step is to train the people with this standard work, because it might happen that everybody has to adjust 10 to 20 or maybe 30% of the way they are working, because now the right way of working or the best practices has been defined in a team after the consensus we have defined and visually presented on one page. Now the people might have to adjust it, and for that we need to train them in the new way of working what we have defined as standard work. And after that we have to monitor the effectiveness. If the intended results are being achieved by standard work, and are there additional issues there which have arise after introduction of standard work. And also we have to take care if the people are following the standard work, if compliance is there, and then keep on improving the standard work based upon these criteria. If we have any issue, just fix the issue. Maybe something is not clearly defined. With these all steps, we can write very well structured, clearly defined standard work for that area, which will bring flow in that area and brings us the productivity. Now let's see a very simple example for standard work for the activity or for the process order confirmation or customer order confirmation. The first step here in standard work, we have written all the activities which are being performed. These activities, for example, are collect all the job orders, all the customer orders from different channels, different branches, and after that check for the available production capacity. And once we have checked, after that check the available material, if we have the availability of all the required material. And once we have checked the production capacity and the material availability, then we have to send the confirmation to the customer, yes, we can deliver the product in that time. So then it's the customer confirmation is sent. The last activity is to create the reports from dashboards. So these are the main 5 activities which we have covered in this standard work. And after that we can add the columns. The column could be how often we have to perform these tasks, and how long ideally it should take, and when we have to perform them. So this is a very simple example how for order confirmation area or process we can define very simple 1-page standard work. With this we have finished all the elements of the first phase, which was creating flow in office area. So what are the benefits of creating flow in office area? The first benefit is lead time reduction. It is estimated to be from 50% to 90% lead time reduction. How? We have seen throughout our journey so far with different elements that we have focused here how to reduce the buffer between employee 1 and employee 2, how to create the one piece flow between them. With all these activities, the waiting time between one task and another task, or one role or the another role, is reducing drastically, which makes the total lead time to be reduced by 50% or maybe 90%. The second benefit is reduction of processing time. We have seen that we have considered in our analysis so far also the activities, and we have seen through Vilo, for example, in that activities, what are the value adding activities, what are the non-value adding activities, do we have any waste. We have gone through 8 type of waste, and all through these elements we can reduce for the task the time spent to perform them further. It has been seen that through creating flow in office areas, the processing time can be reduced from 20 to 40% approximately. The last benefit we have here, the quality improvement. We have seen that we have created standard work. We have placed the standard practices. With the standard work, we have written the best practices, and through the trainings, we ensure that the people are working with the best practices what we have visualized in standard work. So this ensure the consistent way of working, always working in a same way. So with that we have very less variability in the time used and the quality being delivered, and it has been documented that about 25 to 70% of the quality problems are eliminated through creating the flow what we have discussed so far.